Hello, everyone. We are live. How
Nice,
are you all
nice
today?
intro video, Rob. Nice intro video.
Well, I do need to get an intro video, but all the good ones are stolen. The Dougie. That's pretty much it. We have Leroy. How are you, Leroy?
I'm all right.
Jeez, loving the enthusiasm this morning. George.
All right, Rob. All right, let's go.
Okay, that's worse somehow.
Okay.
Hi, how are you, George? Good to see you today.
I'm doing great.
There was some speculation that you wouldn't make it, so that is good to see you here. And Adam has joined us.
Rob is crying.
Yeah,
like
hey
a
guys.
schoolgirl, George, crying like a schoolgirl because you weren't going to be here. It was sad.
It's not the same. It's not the same without George. That's
Well,
why
I appreciate it. No, I'm here, but no screaming, please.
Let's have a look at chat. Good to see everyone here. Comics with Drew. How, Rob? Don't replicate the mainstream. That's weak sauce. That is very good. Where did I come up with this topic, Rob? I don't know. Some may say I stole it from somewhere.
You don't ever do that. I don't believe it.
Crazy talk. Corey's in the house. Good to see you, Corey. K Manifesto. Yes, good to see you, mate. I borrow ideas. George.
Yeah.
Jose Garcia.
Jose, he's a good one.
Wayne. Good to see you. Good to see everyone.
Rob, did you even put a tweet out about this stream?
I did, but I was really busy this morning. I woke up my wife half an hour before we had to send our little one off to kinder, which apparently is not enough time.
I'm surprised you guys don't have like a nickname with the Y at the end of it for kindergarten like you Aussies do for everything else.
Kinder.
Yeah, like Kindy or
Kindo.
something. Yeah.
Kindy. Kindo, yeah.
I like it though. I like these colloquials, Rob. Keep them coming.
I understand George may be a bit squeamish, so I'll have to tell him about my jaw surgery one day.
Oh,
Mate.
Ooh.
Do you want me to tell you about it now?
no.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm positive.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to be talking about today is, should we be trying to do what the mainstream has done in the past with comic books? It seems like some people, some creators think that going back to a monthly book is the way to go. Trying to seemingly like they're trying to recapture the success of the 90s. So what do you guys think about that in general? I'll go with George. What do you think about trying to do monthly books?
No, I think it's a bad idea.
Leroy?
I want to know what you think first.
Me?
Yeah.
I think it's a terrible idea. I think one, it's not feasible. Like when these companies were doing monthly books, you had a writer, you had a penciler, you had an inker, you had a colorist, you had an editor, you had someone that would have done printing, you would have had someone that did distribution, you would have someone that did marketing and promotion. And a lot of these comic books now, a lot of these are one person, which makes the whole process impossible to do monthly books. That's what I think.
Now, Adam, what do you think?
Yeah. See, what I honestly feel like is, the comic book reading crowd is shrinking, right? The streaming crowd, you can see based on the numbers, the number of people in comic shops. And so what I really think is part of the magic of what we can do is try and capture people who might not be that crowd as well, right? Like you want to catch those people, but I think that there's a lot of people who are new to comics. On the 8th, I got, I think, maybe 4 or 5 messages from people that said, I've never read a comic in a comic book shop in my life, and I backed this because it looked cool and it was exciting. And I think for people who didn't grow up reading them, the graphic novel or the bigger chunk of story at a time is much more accessible, right? Because they don't want to go into a shop every Wednesday, and pull from get a pull list. They want to read something and it's cool, and then they move on, right? Or they catch maybe the second volume next year. So I really think that the future of it, or at least a portion of the future of it, for bringing in new people is not the monthly 22-page issue.
Leroy?
I don't think it's just a bad idea. I think it's a retarded idea.
Yeah, I don't think it's what the fan base wants either. I mean, you bring it up a lot of the time, Leroy, like, it's a premium product, but it's not just that. It's been part of the whole process. Like it's been on streams, it's interacting with creators, it's feeling like you're a part of it.
The anticipation of a launch of a campaign. You
Yeah,
lose
like,
that.
It's a whole thing. Like you can't do that. You can't do what used to be done. And like, I don't want to either. Like, I don't want to go back to not hanging out with fans and not interacting with a chat or, getting to know a creator. Like, I'd rather pay more money for that privilege because, that's how it is right now.
Well, don't you think also that like part of the charm is like there's the interaction with the creator, there's the anticipation of it, and then there's like, Tompa and I talk about books all the time in DM, right? It's like, oh, did you read that one? What did you think about it? Oh, did you see, that one? Oh, yeah. And that chase, that sensation of the chase. Oh, did you see that new campaign that dropped? At least for me, like that is an incredible sensation that we've lost a lot in the world, right? Because you can now get everything on demand, right? You can get everything from Amazon and you can watch any TV show on demand, but you can't get these books there, right? So there's that sensation, right? Back when we were younger and you're like, ooh, did you catch that new band? Did you catch that new thing did you get that CD? And so anyways, that's for me, I love that part of it,
I don't know. To me, it's like you're looking at the mainstream, you're seeing them fail, and you're like, hey, let's copy what they're doing. That's like retarded. Like, what in the hell?
Yeah, and like you're saying, the mainstream has the benefit that DC is owned by AT&T, and Marvel's owned by Disney, which their profit machine doesn't work on their print line, right? That's not how they make money, and so they can function in a way that doesn't need to be self-sustaining because comics don't sustain their businesses. They're really their businesses. You know what I mean? Disney is in events and merchandising, and AT&T is in communication. So
Just to play devil's advocate, there are ways to make it work. Like
Sure.
if you did a crowdfund, Rob, we're going to use you as an example because you're the creator here. And let's say you launch it in January and it's a 60-day campaign. And this is going to be a subscription for all of 2022. So you're going to start working on it now. We're going to fund you now. And you're going to launch it now. 60 days, run it in demand. But starting in 2022, you're going to start sending out monthly books. There's no campaigning needed now in 2022. And you're going to send it out each month. Or let's say every 2 months, to combine on shipping or what have you. It could potentially work.
But George, like, we're both Comicsgate veteran fans, right? Do you trust these creators to send out about book once a month?
Monthly would be tough.
Right.
Well, what about bi-monthly or quarterly? Like right now, the way it works is, you crowdfund it, you start working on it, you fulfill it, and let's say it's supposed to take you 8 months. It's going to take them 12. Getting a book once a year, you kind of lose interest after a while. Like how can you keep the interest going in a book? And one of the ideas was, should we do it monthly? And let's face it, you're saying mainstream is failing, but if you got the backers that mainstream books get from monthly book, that would be astounding for you.
I'm not saying that. The statistics are saying it, George. I don't say it.
Statistics where?
Yeah, I think
The
George,
sales.
I think what you're talking about, George, is think about a comic book from Marvel and DC. They can do 100. They do 100,000. On the top end, you know what I mean?
Yeah, even their worst books will get 10,000.
Right. So that's
Rob. If Rob had 10,000 backers, he'd be astounded. That's my point.
That's what I was thinking, George. Is that like drawing that large of a fan base? So to get that mass scale is what you need to be able to support the machine. And think about it. Even Keanu Reeves, who I love, I've worked with, he's amazing. His book couldn't generate enough backers to create that machine, right? He got about 15,000 backers. So
he got a 15,000. And this is where people get this wrong. He got 15,000 backers for his Kickstarter, which are the collected trade editions. It's still going to be released monthly.
Totally, absolutely. But what I'm trying to say is, if your only machine is a crowdfunding source, and you don't have Boom and a comic book shop lineup and a whole distribution outlet, then that's a really hard thing to get. Now, here's the thing. I think the one thing I do like about a monthly is, and I think there's a lot of value, and I think that webtoons does a wonderful job of that. You know what I mean? Because Webtoons is super fun. I don't know if you're on it, but there's more people reading Webtoons than print comics for sure. And what's fun about that is because it's like disposable, right? It's like how comics used to be. They come in the newspaper every day or kind of a thing. You can really engage with the story. And I think that's a wonderful way to maintain, like what you're saying, George, like keep a story going, right? I think that's a real thing, is being able to be like, oh, what's going on with the Replicator this week? There's something to that.
Now, the other thing I wanted to mention, Rob, and once again, I'm going to pick on you. Why are you limiting yourself to Indiegogo? Like, why aren't you trying to talk to local comic shops and say, look, I'm going to have this book out. It's going to be out 6 times a year. You want to add it to your shop. Why aren't you thinking about going to conventions and selling? Like, you don't have to limit your sales just what's on Indiegogo. You don't.
Yeah, no, that is another point. Cons and comic book stores are probably not the best. I don't want to say use of time, but probably not the best ways to sell your book. I think the best ways to sell it is via crowdfunding and online stores.
You get a bigger cut of it to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about that, Adam? I'm not a huge fan of cons myself.
So here's the thing with cons. I think cons are a wonderful way to connect with fans face to face. They're a great way to get premium things out. I think, I've worked Comic-Con many years. There was a company I was called PCB Publishing. Thank you, Corey. And I was there, and we were at Comic-Con. We had a big booth at Comic-Con. I did it for multiple years, and we sold premium books like metal covers and really extensive things. And it was really cool, and it was a nice way to connect with fans. But if the con is your only way to connect with people, it's really not enough, because unfortunately, especially Comic-Con is so expensive, those booths. It's really about a way to enhance and further galvanize your fans. And I think that's really meaningful. Now, the hard part is, George, with retail distribution, that is a tough way to make money, right? Essentially, if you take a book that's selling for $4 retail, right? Which means you sell it to the retailer at wholesale, which is $2. But usually there's a distributor in the middle, such as Diamond or somebody else, who's also going to take 30 cents out of that. So the best you can get back on a book, the best is like $1.70 per book. And that has to cover your marketing, your printing, and your creation costs. And you've got to deliver 22 pages that way to get in that space and compete with those guys. And so think about, so that's why it's just so hard. I spent a lot of time when I was early on. I had written this book called Dead Speed. I had been working with indie publishers, and just that was the realization, is that going through that retail model, the number of people who could actually make any money was Rick Remender, right? Was Rick Remender, was these kind of guys who could, of their own, had really created a fan base, could move 10 to 15,000 issues a month on an Image book. But anybody else, just they were truly operating at a deficit or working for free.
This is where George and I disagree a little bit on, is I think what we do here in Comicsgate with YouTube is even better than cons as far as engaging with fans and whatever. I don't understand how the mainstream hasn't noticed. And you could shake your head, Rob, but
no, sorry, it's just Corey.
No, it's Corey.
But how they don't see what you guys are doing, Clayton, EVS, what you guys are doing, and seeing the gold mine that is what we're doing here and not adapting to it is insane to me. This is a way better. What we do here we have cons nightly in Comicsgate, essentially.
But think about this, Steve, we do this for love. The 4 people here on this stream are not getting paid $1, right? And DC can't ask Jim Lee and 4 writers and artists to show up for an hour stream for free, right? They can't ask them to do it. They would need to pay them. They would need to be compensated. And also, to remember, the mainstream, right, they just don't make money from comics. I don't know how to say it. It's one Batman video game generates more revenue for Warner Brothers, which is owned by AT&T, than comics will for 3 years.
Nobody disagree. That's fine.
Yeah. So, so why invest in that way? If you're sitting in a boardroom, right? I'm sitting in a boardroom at AT&T. Do I go that way, or do I say, let's do another Batman game? You know what I mean? Anyways, I'll leave it at that.
Another thing about monthly books is I feel it's very limiting as well. You're forced to produce a certain amount of work each month. And if once you're forced to do something, the quality of the book is going to go down, whatever you want to do. Like, let's take Replicator, for example, right? I had it at 28 pages. I could make it better by increasing it to 32. So I did. I can't do that if I'm under the constraints of a monthly book. So yeah, it's another point. What do you think about that, George?
I think Ethan is even a better example of that because he can take his time. Like, he's probably the best artist in comics, period, right now, because he can take his time and draw how he wants, take as long as he wants. His work is better than anything that the mainstream's putting out because of what you just said, Rob.
I think that, Leroy, I think you have a great point there. Time is a big factor in art. It's a massive factor. I think Corey and Clayton can really, these are amazing artists, and time is everything, right? And I agree that there's something special about that. Like I tweeted out your page, Rob, that you'd sent on your update today, for Replicator. And it was just like, I looked at that page, I was like, God, what an epic page this was, right? I just had to share it because it was just like, this is so cool. The colors on it, the lines. And I think you're right, that comes from time. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
I think people in general procrastinate, whether you're an artist or you're a student or you paint houses for a living. And I think without having a deadline, you'll find reasons to procrastinate. And the all too used excuse, well, we're making it as good as possible, you got to give us more time. We go back to that well over and over and over again. And it's one thing to say my deadline isn't this month, but there needs to be some sort of deadline to push to say we got to get our product out there. And I'm not pointing fingers at you, Rob, or you, Adam. I'm just saying, in general, there seems to be no deadline and a convenient excuse of we're going to make it as good as possible.
I agree with you, George, to the point that I would not back a first-time creator on any kind of like quarterly, monthly. No way in hell. Like, would I believe from what I've seen from creators, and I'm not throwing shade, but from what I've seen over and over again, like there'd be no way that I trust that.
That's fair. That's fair. And I think, George, you're right. When I work in television, and I'm working on an edit, right? If I said, great studio, can I have another $1 million and extend post for 6 more months? Would that episode of TV be that much better? It probably wouldn't, George, because there's a balancing point that where you hit the middle, where it's like, there's too little time. Hey, Adam, can you cut this episode in 5 days? Well, not if you want it to be good, but there's also at 40 days, at some point, then you start to swing the other way. Now you've double thought your decision so many times, redone it so much, you've maybe gone the other way. So I think that there's a balancing act to that, George. And I think that the abandonment of deadlines I agree with you, is absurd. And it can be used as an excuse. And I don't think it creates great art. But unrealistic deadlines wreck you. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
One other point, and it is what it is. A lot of these people aren't full time, so it's not a fair comparison to make as well. That if you're trying to do a monthly book, everyone has to be full time on it, like everyone. And the fulfillment and distribution things that takes months in itself. So unless you've got that set up, so it works the way it used to for the mainstream. I don't know how you could possibly do it that way.
So we all seem to agree that the monthly idea is not a good idea. So what do you think is a good idea as far as like feasibility, but still not only retaining your audience but keeping them enthusiastic?
I think somewhere between 2 to 4 a year, and I would say 2 would probably be my choice. 3 would be okay. 4 would be pushing it.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's take Zach, for example. Like, he's got 8 books out this year. Can you imagine if Ethan, you, Bancroft, Barton's, everybody in Comicsgate just decided, hey, I'm going to drop 8 books this month or this year? Like, that would be insane.
I could see Rob doing 3 books in a year. Hear me out. Replicator 3, Replicator 4, Replicator Collected. That's 3 separate campaigns.
Well, why wouldn't you put the Collected, George, in one of the regular Replicator campaigns?
You could, but it's a different print. It might slow things down for the Replicator 4 release. He wants to reward his Replicator 4 backers. You could potentially have 3 campaigns in a year. 4, I think, is stretching it. Ethan does that. I don't think he's the best example because he's Ethan.
He's never the example for anything.
But he can do his collected editions, he can do his toys, he can do his new issue and a different IP. When we're talking about Adam, when we're talking about Rob, 2 to 3 a year would be great. These folks that are doing 1 and they're taking like 15, 16 months, it's tough. Like, you do lose interest.
Yeah,
I think
you do.
Gotta be really careful about taking the piss out of backers. Like, I think, Leroy says it all the time. Like, I've got 2 books a month I'm backing. George might say I have 2 or 3 or whatever it is. There is a certain amount of money that backers are going to spend on these books every month, right?
That's right.
And if you're doing 8 campaigns in a year and expecting the backers to back every one of them, that is, that's less of other projects you're going to back, and people are not going to do that.
Well,
that's what I think.
Clayton's he's saying like quarterly as possible. I would tell Clayton, like, the anticipation of having 2 a year, having that build up to having launching a campaign absolutely means something to fans. Like that, having that being first. Once you go into 4, that anticipation, you lose that. Like, it's just like, oh well, Barton's launching another book, yada da, or whatever. But if you're doing 2 a year, it's an event.
Yeah. I agree with that, Leroy, and I think you're right. I think that there is eventizing it is really important, and I agree that there is. I'm with you, Rob. Like 2 books a year seems realistic and manageable, and I would say that one of the ways to keep people interested in between. It's one of the reasons I do monthly digitals. Because my backers get an issue every single month on my campaigns. They just get it digitally, but they get it every single month. I deliver a book every month. I'm also way ahead on my books when I start the campaign, and that's a way. And it's been really nice. I think there's also ways, like I see what Rags does, the New Age Ninja Corps. Like what they do is they put the pages up on Patreon, and so like they're delivering like maybe 5 or 6 pages a month, right? And they're doing 6 pages a month, like a bit of a chapter of the story every month that they have Patreons on. And then once it reaches enough pages, then they do a campaign, all right, and they launch it. And I think that's a really meaningful way too, right, where people can get a taste of the story, small amount of money commitment, right, and are staying connected, and it gives them something to be reading over time. And it's not even they have to read it every time, right? Maybe you just catch one here or there, but it keeps the engagement. I think those are all good.
I don't know. I think people keep looking at like let's make it better. But right now, the $25 a month, 48-page, I think it scratches the itch. I don't understand why people are like, let's reinvent the wheel when we should be refining, not reinventing at this point.
One of the things that, go ahead, Rob.
Just let me clarify. Like when I say 2 a year, I mean 2 campaigns run and books delivered in hand a year. Not 2 campaigns run and then the books come whenever they come, like in your actual hands.
Oh yeah, I'd love to get 2 Replicator books a year.
One of the best ways to cut down the wait time is to have more of the book done by the time you launch. Like a lot of these campaigns, we know it, like, and you hear it, oh, it's practically done, but you don't see any advancement. I've been waiting longer and longer to back these books because I want a shorter time frame from the day I drop my dollar to the day I get my book.
Right.
Yep. Damn right. That's a really fair point. And like I think like the way I see it, right, first time creators I give a pass to, because it's a lot of money, like to actually pay for a comic book yourself. Like you're talking, maybe around 10 grand, maybe more. Depending on what your quality is, how big the book is. And that's hard to come up with. So I'll give you guys a pass. I'm happy to do that. But when you start getting on 2nd issue, 3rd issue, like you got to get that shit sorted out. So the books are happening more frequently. You're ahead of time, that kind of stuff. That's what I want to see from people.
But Rob, I agree with you on this. I know you and I have talked about this, like getting the books to people faster. Right. And George, I think you make a good point. I think that's a real thing. That like a couple of months you're okay with, 2 to 5 months. But once it starts to get to be a year, and I even myself, I'm getting the 8th at the printers now in China. And by the time, people get it, for some of the earliest backers, it'll have been like 11, months, and mine was 224 pages, I'll admit. So it's quite a thing they're getting, and it's not a 48-page book; it's a 224-page. But I wish every day I could get it to them faster, and the Kill Journal will happen faster. But it's
Yeah,
it's a
well,
real
when I'm
thing.
saying this, I'm not talking to Adam. I'm not saying like I'm not saying you understand. I'm just saying in general,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, totally.
All right,
It
as long as
goes-
everyone understands that.
It goes
Yeah,
to
no,
what we
no.
were talking about yesterday when we said different creators have different like rules in my book. Like
Yeah.
if I have let's talk about Eric Weathers, for example. He's working on Battle Brick Road. I'm seeing regular updates, art updates out of Eric all the time. So I'm going to have a lot more patience out of him than a book that I backed a year ago that I've seen no updates out of.
That's a good point, Leroy. I totally feel that too. That's why I do the digital monthlies, because it's like, when I say the book is done, because you can see it page per page. Absolutely.
So just on that, George and Leroy, are you more lenient towards first-time creators, or the same rules apply for you guys?
It depends on the communication from that creator, usually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not leaning towards anybody.
Yep. That's
Hey,
fair.
George, what do you think about this? Do you, when you think about, is a page count, what does that mean to you as a backer?
You mean like if I back a book that's 32 pages like Rob or 100 pages, do I give them more time?
Yeah, and you feel like, oh, you're more excited by 100 pages than 32 pages?
No, I'm more
change
nervous. I'm more nervous about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, you are, okay.
Like I'm much more willing to risk backing a 32-page book than a 100-page book. Absolutely, absolutely.
Gotcha.
That's what I was saying. I think that 48 pages is a sweet spot. Like, it's like right there.
Chat is going off, and you guys are making some fantastic points in there. Comics with Drew says, "What I like better than updates is a book on my desk." That's very true. Yeah, and I agree. When I see a first-time creator do a book that's 100 pages, man, I'd be shitting my pants for them, because.
Or bonus, like I'm giving you an extra book on the campaign.
Please don't do
I'm
that.
like,
that's the worst.
Go ahead.
There are some creators that have said, I will add a bonus 8-page story, and they've delivered it on time. And like, it does happen.
But I'm saying an entire book, George. You know, I know what you're saying, right?
No. Like 32 to 48, maybe a couple extra pages, but let's not get crazy with it, because I do get nervous. And I'm not the only one. You can see the chat. They're saying it too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Like it's interesting with the Kill Journal, I added 24 pages to it in the campaign. We unlocked 24, but I had 4 other artists, 4 other writers, and 4 other colorists do those books. So they're actually already done ahead of even the other to beat that problem, because I think that's a real thing, George, for sure.
So the other thing that gets said a lot of the time is that we need to go back or get as close to the pricing that Marvel and DC have for comic books, which I think it's impossible. You can't do it unless you're selling tens of thousands of books. You have that distribution going out everywhere.
I'm not seeing that though, Rob. I see a few very vocal people in the chat who say that. Other than that, like, I don't see anybody like, I want a $4 comic book. Like, most people here understand what's what, So I'm not seeing that complaint a whole lot.
Well, I see it a lot more probably in the past when I was on Kickstarter, and that's the model. Like, these are comic books that people are used to paying this much money for them. So this is what you should be doing. But it's not achievable because,
Well, the Kickstarter crowd is quite a bit different than the Indiegogo crowd.
Your
book is $15, right? It's not 25.
And that's not cheap.
No.
Not in the slightest. What do you think about pricing in general? I think maybe
this is a good topic. Yeah.
Maybe it should be coming down, but trying to get down to $5 is not. It's not something that
I don't want to spend $5 every 6 months for a book and then spend $15 to get it shipped to my house. I like the pricing. I like the pricing where it is. I like the format where it is. What I don't like is the wait time. That's the only complaint I have, and it's not. I'm not saying this to you, Robert, or anybody. I'm just saying just in general, if I back a book, you know, if I get it 16 months later, I've already kind of lost interest in it. And I certainly don't want the next one.
Let's talk about a book we just reviewed, George. Let's talk about 94, where we paid $25. We got a book in 2 months. It came with an ash can, 3 trading cards, a print, and whatever for $25. I thought that was good value.
I backed it in December. Or I received it in January, 2 months ahead of schedule.
Yeah, but you got it on time. You got it, and you didn't feel ripped off because it came with a bunch of extra stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I heard this same creator, I've heard say he's working on the next issue now and isn't launching it till he's closer to being done. He's got 15 pages already completed of his 48.
Yep. Well, I think though, interesting thing. So I got 94 as well too. I liked it. It's like this wild, crazy ride of a book. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Comics Mate. But I really enjoyed 94. That was also though material that had been previously completed.
Well,
right?
that's George's point that Shelby said he's going to have like 2/3 of the book done before he launches his Indiegogo campaign, his next one.
Yep. And I back that. I really agree with that concept. But here's the thing about it: when you think, I think with 94, you got a pretty good value for your $25.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear Zaid's comment too that in other circles outside of maybe this smaller, tighter circle, that sometimes people, are, especially people new to comics, are like $25 for 48 pages. It can be a sticker shock, right? When you go to the graphic novel store and you can get 112 pages, or it feels like a thicker thing for $20. There could be some knee jerk for somebody who's outside the circle.
Adam, I'm going to ask you. You've backed Replicator?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you got the last campaign, you got 4 9x12 prints, right?
That's right.
Now, how much would a 9x12 print cost you at a con?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of around 10 to 20, depending on.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Let's just say $10 a piece. You got 4 of those plus 2 mini prints plus 2 comics. Let's say for what was it, like $50 with shipping or anything? Like, I think the value is there, and we're just once again Robert's using you as an example. I think if you're saying these 2 comics cost me $50, you're going to be like, yeah, that's expensive. But when you look at everything you get, and you're unlocking more and more stuff, the better they're doing, it becomes a value.
George, that's a good point. That's a good point. And I think that when I talk to folks who are outside of maybe the normal comics stream, they don't understand the value of a print, or maybe they're maybe not used to receiving those things, and helping them see that might help curb that. Because I agree with you, George. You're right. At a con, if I got those 2 comics and that print, and also to that really cool wax seal that Rob did with the trad, right? Like, even my wife was like, "That's cool."
Yep.
That I would be like, hell yeah! Like I got away with the bank, So I agree.
I just think our crowd isn't like when I was a kid, teenager. Like, if I had to go spend $25 to get a comic book, Adam, absolutely, I'd take your point and be like, there'd be no way. But let's face it, everybody in Comicsgate is 42 years old, and most of us can't afford $25 a month to throw at a comic book now. Like, that's your demographic here, right? So I just don't see anything wrong with it, I guess, since we're not trying to sell to like a 12-year-old kid at a 7-Eleven.
I agree, and I think the pricing seems. I don't think that's the biggest obstacle. I agree with that. I don't think that is, and it's something that can't change because you got to pay people, right? So I think you're right, Leroy.
Okay. So I mean, I guess the question is, from here, what do we do, or what should creators do to expand the market, get new readers in, that kind of thing? What do you think, George, Adam, Leroy? What would you do?
An Amazon store.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with going on Kickstarter. There's nothing wrong with it. I know, Leroy won't back things on there, but as long as you put it on Indiegogo, who cares what else you do?
Yeah, I won't fault you for trying to make more money.
And I don't think there's a problem with going to conventions or trying to do something locally. I know, Adam, I heard you say that can't be your only source. But what if you go to a con and you meet 10 people that start backing you? That's how it grows.
Right. That's exactly right. Like, I think it's a part of the machine, George. I think you're saying it right. Like, I think you said a good idea that it's that, like, whether it's an Amazon store that you want to set up, I think that Shopify might be a better solve because you get the full profit, so you can actually offer a lot more discount and quality to your customer. But I think that's right. I think it's going to cons, right? I think it's YouTube channels, right? It's social media presence. It's that all those packages. It's also partnering up with other people who aren't a part of this community, right? Who are not necessarily like, I think like Jimmy, he had Dave Finch on his channel the other day, right? And it was so cool, right? And that was a great partnership that was just a nice connection with somebody outside of that circle, or connecting with other people who might be an artist on YouTube who's like a painter or somebody that's a YouTube influencer, and trying to find partnerships that way where you can connect with them.
I would not do that, Phil, because you got to understand most of your base is in Indiegogo. Like, I would not offer something on Kickstarter you can't get on Indiegogo.
I think he's saying it from the point of view, though, of trying to make the Indiegogo people feel like they're getting an exclusive thing, so that people that back later on Kickstarter don't get that thing. But yeah, I get what you're saying too. Like it could come across both ways.
Yeah.
I've
thought about this, Rob. What do you think about this? Is to start on Kickstarter, because that campaign ends, they don't have in demand, but then go to Indiegogo second because it has the benefit of in demand.
No.
What do you think?
No. It's got to be Indiegogo first, because this is where our fan base is.
Gotcha.
I get what you're saying though, but no, it's got to be Indiegogo first. I don't think that would fly with anyone here if it was on Kickstarter first. That'd be right, guys.
I also would think if you did on Indiegogo first and were fully funded, you wouldn't have to have that same funding goal on Kickstarter. So let's say you had to get like to 10,000. I'm just making numbers up, but you're funded. Then you can make your funding goal on Kickstarter $100, because no matter what you make there, it's just extra. No one's going to fault you for trying to make money, guys.
The thing is, like I don't know how well it would translate, and maybe you guys can let me know of some creators. Billy Tucci, I know, does Kickstarter, but right, if we're charging 25 for a 48 as an example, based on my experience, people on Kickstarter probably won't pay that as much. What do you guys think about that?
Dave Sim does it too. He starts on Kickstarter and then does an in-demand on Indiegogo. I've seen him do it as well.
Mm.
That's what I think. I think Eric, you make a good point. Like, if you did something that was like, hey, we're doing a Kickstarter, and then there's an Indiegogo and it has an exclusive cover that's special to it.
I don't think Tucci did a Kickstarter on this last campaign though.
He did. He did. Yeah,
okay.
his wife convinced him to do it. They were getting a lot of requests. I'm positive.
Okay.
Yeah. Corey says you should do an exclusive cover on Kickstarter just to annoy Leroy.
I don't care. Like, it's fine.
I don't know. Maybe if you did a cover for Kickstarter, but you had the option for people on Indiegogo to buy it as well, but they can't buy the Indiegogo cover, right?
Now you're just making it too complicated. Just put the thing on there or don't.
Yeah. Okay.
There are wait, Rob. There are things though. You talking about like getting to the newer customers, things that you guys can do right now to make things easier for your existing customers. I've talked to you about this before, but these campaign previews, I don't feel like they're used enough. Like, give us an idea of what we're in for, a couple of weeks in advance. So before you launch a campaign, because these books are $25 for the basic tier. You can get up to I know a lot of people that did $150 for the last Roquefort campaign. That's half a car payment, man. Like, give us a preview. Let us know what we're in for before you launch the book.
Well, and what do you think about that, George? Because I agree. I've done it in the past. I've given previews to like people on my mailing list. I think it's the best way to do it, so people know what they're getting. And as soon as that launch button goes live, they can go, that's the one I'm getting. Click it, buy it, done.
No, I love that, but you're the only person I've ever seen do it.
Oh,
so basically, everyone that's signed up gets to see the campaign advance. They get to tell you, hey, look, this is wrong, or I'd like to see this in it. And you can make sort of changes before the time comes. I do like that idea.
Yeah, and
you follow what we're saying, Adam?
Yeah, I do. It's interesting that you say this. I haven't done that. I usually send it to like a small circle of people to say, hey, am I missing something? Does it suck? But this is an interesting thought, George, opening that up to more people.
Well, I mean, it's a smart way to do it because I showed George and a whole bunch of other people before I launched, and George was like, "Well, I was going to get the Dan Fragger cover, but I see it's not available day one." And then I'm like, because I was thinking I'd release it during the campaign, that'll build some excitement, we'll get some backers. But George is like, "Well, that's the one I wanted," and then I'm like, "Well, why not just give it to him so he can back it when he wants to back it?" So it's getting feedback from people that are actually going to spend money on your campaign. I think is invaluable.
Yeah.
Chat is I'm sure Shane did it with Starlight Cats too.
And EVS did it too, according to iBorrow. I can't remember. I
that's
remember you
idea.
doing it particularly.
Darius says a CG Summit live stream announced launch dates and interview teams about their books and show off teasers like a CG event that like they do at cons.
Doesn't that happen every night?
Yeah. The only book I haven't backed because the price was Death Shroud, 20 main cover, 15 shipping. Can't do 35 for 28 pages.
I don't think Death Shroud is a CG book, but I backed that too, and I was a little turned off, but I wanted that book, so.
Yeah.
I know, that price on that was a stopper for me. I just was like, oh, man, I don't think I can go. Yeah.
The biggest travesty about that book is how do you get Kane and White to do interiors and not have him do a cover for you? That's insane.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Don't
It's a
start
cool
over
looking
on
book. It was a cool looking book.
that. So I mean, yeah, Kickstarter is definitely an option. I don't know what the laws are on that around here. Like if it's frowned upon.
Oh,
What do you mean the laws? You mean
Like
etiquette wise? I
Yeah.
think I don't see there's a problem with doing it at all.
yeah, as long as I don't have to go on there and give them my money, I don't care what you do. Like, honestly, go make more money. Do it.
Because I'm in that spot where I really ask myself this, because I do board games as well, and I have about 10,000 backers in the board game world that are only on Kickstarter, right? And lots of them came from my TV show Escape the Night, this game I did, and they're younger, right? And it was hard enough to get them to cross the line to Kickstarter because that's where board games live. And so I've been trying to get them to come to Indiegogo. It has been hard, and so that's why I thought, man, I want to make it as easy for people as I can. You know what I mean? And to be honest, most of these people who are backing these games and books of mine on, they don't even know anything about particularly negative things that have happened on Kickstarter. They don't even know about that kind of stuff. They're just customers looking for stuff.
Wouldn't you agree that you not doing Kickstarter? Because I don't feel like if you did a Kickstarter, you'd have to campaign since you already did that Indiegogo. If you're not doing Kickstarter, are you just leaving money on the table just by not doing it at all?
Me?
Yeah, a creator. If you have a book that you have, Replicator 3, it's got 35. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's already been funded for this much. If you just threw it on Kickstarter, because let's face it, in this network, nobody's going to back it up. But people are going to back it, you would say. So aren't you just leaving money on the table at that point for not doing it at all?
Yeah, it's one of those things. Are you leaving money on the table by not doing cons? Are you leaving money on the table by not, doing local comic stores? It's all those things. You're not doing a website where you can buy the book. There's money to be made everywhere. It's just it's trying to use your time the best to make the most, I guess. But yeah, Kickstarter would be the next choice. I would say for sure.
The only thing I'm kind of curious about, how would that work? Would you have the same level of stretch goals? So 4,000, 4,000, 4,000, let's say. So then you'll be getting exclusive stuff on Indiegogo that you wouldn't get on Kickstarter if the funding level on Indiegogo was higher.
Why do you have to have stretch goals on Kickstarter, though? You
That's
don't
true.
just put it on Kickstarter and sell the book.
That's just how it's done. People would expect it.
Yeah, it's true too.
Yeah.
And one thing, we touched on this earlier, but the money we pay, the $25, it's not just for the book. It's not, you don't just get the book. George said you get stretch goals and that kind of stuff, but you get the whole thing of being part of the book, interacting with the fans, interacting with the creators, putting your input in, being valued as a customer, listened to, being respected, all those kind of things that for me make it worthwhile.
Oh, I've backed books that I probably wouldn't have backed just because of the entertainment value I get from a particular creator stream. Like that's a
Does that
fact.
does that factor in for you at all, George, or
No.
it's just
I
no?
only back the book because I want the book. As entertaining as I might find a stream or an entertainer, unless the book seems interesting to me, I'm not going to back it.
Adam, does that play a part for you?
That does play a part for me. Yeah, like I should say it plays a part when I'm on the fence, right? Like if I looked at it and I'm like, there's something I'm missing in this campaign. Sometimes I'll get on a stream and be like, oh, that's what this is. For example, with Groken, I looked at the campaign first because I love the artist, and I was like, I'm not really sure what this is even about. Like, there's these mini comics, I don't even know. And then I saw him on a stream, and you can see, English is his second language, and you can tell he's, doing the best he can to put that campaign together. And then once he started to explain, hey, here's what these mini comics are, and here's this, I was like, I'm in. So that was an example of where the stream definitely made the difference for me.
Yeah, I mean, people in chat are saying, if they're on the fence, it will put you ahead of other people, perhaps. Clayton's saying he only cares about the book. For me, if I'm on the fence, that is definitely a massive consideration. This is something that Clayton's told me. He was ready to back Groken, but he couldn't get the third cover standalone, so he didn't back it.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, that was a calculated move by Rocafort, though. So, I mean, that's something he'd have to take up. Like, at first, when I saw that campaign, I'm like, what's going on here? I don't understand any. Rob and I talked about it. I'm like, I don't understand any of this. And I heard Rocafort talk about it, and it made sense. Did I agree with it? No. But, like, it made sense,
I Borrow Idea says, English is Rob's native language, and we still can't understand him half the time. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, so one thing that I'm kind of interested in, and I want to see what you guys think about this, right? But focusing on the premium model, making it as good as can be, stretch goals, backer experience, quicker delivery, all those things, right? Improve all that, make it all better. But after that, maybe say 6 months later, releasing digital somewhere for free. Yes or no?
I think doing it with the book, Nolan gave the digital copy away with the book for free.
Yeah, no, that would happen as well for the backers. I'm talking about like on your website, so people that haven't backed the book can read it. Kind of similar to what they do with manga, right? You can get manga free anywhere, and then people that like it will pick up and buy the book.
But you're not asking. Here's the tricky part, and like you're asking somebody to pay $25 to buy your book, and then you're not giving I know it's not the physical copy, but you're giving away the content for free. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. I'd be interested to see how the chat, like fans, would feel.
Here's what I think: if you have a dedicated, I'm not trying to pick on anybody. If you had a dedicated creative team, and they were working on a long-standing series, I'm going to use Kozor as an example because we got some Kozor guys here. And they gave away the first issue for free, digital only, 6 months after the release, just to show everybody what the book is about. That's one thing. But Rob, you releasing your first issue for free does not show your book. It changes from book 1 to book 2, and it's going to change from book 2 to book 3. I don't think it's the same. It's not an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Now I back you, Rob, in the sense of the idea of releasing it later. So that's what I did with D8. I put it on Global Comics, the issue 1. It's 8 issues for one, also 2, so it's just a little slice of it. And I think there's about 1,500 people read it, and maybe some backed and maybe didn't. But if nothing else, more people connected with it. So I think that dropping the issue 1 out for free is fair. Because also too, let's just be honest, it's not like people are like downloading that and pasting it everywhere and thousands of people reading it. That would be a great problem. It's like, I think that making issue 1 prevents your backers who might have done it, who might have paid or might have paid for the digital, from feeling like, what? Why did I pay? I should have just waited. But it also lets people who want more of a real taste of the book a chance. So I think making issue 1 free. I agree. Granted, Rob, your book changes dramatically, from issue to issue. But here's the thing. I think your issue 1 is rad. if I read your issue 1 digitally, I would go, oh, I'd like to know more about that.
Here, we got people like Rick Sailorway. He said, and he's a regular in a lot of chats. You endanger pissing him off, and that's not good. Like, you want to keep Rick happy, right, George? Like,
I agree, but I'm just using Rob as an example. If you were thinking about releasing digital, you should only consider doing your first book and nothing else. And like I said, Rob, your first book isn't a good example of how the whole series is going. So for you particularly, I don't think it works.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because there is a significant improvement, and not just significant, like night and day in terms of the art quality between book 1 and 2. And like the art in book 1's not bad, but the art in book 2 is.
Yes, that's my. I was just trying to be nice.
Well, no, and to be fair, another point for Rob is, the people that are his fan base now didn't back to get book 1 done. I mean, that was done before he came over to this crowd, but it's a different circumstance. It's not the normal circumstance.
It's been a really interesting topic, actually. Chat has been going off about it. It's very interesting. I don't know what the answer is to that, because I'm just trying to think, like, how do you attract more readers, right, without pissing off the people that are actually paying for your book?
Just do what Ethan does. It's not hard. Just do what Ethan does, Rob. What are you doing?
Leroy, I know you're joking, but you always say never use Ethan as an example for anything.
Yeah. Well, what if we flipped? What if you reversed it, Rob? What if instead what you did, and I've been thinking about this a lot, is releasing your first issue digitally first, at the beginning of your campaign, so that way everyone gets that for free. No one needs to feel cited. And I'm thinking, for me, because my books are more like 80 pages or 220, there's more to give away. But to give something up front, so that way people can take a dip. What do you think about that? Or I guess maybe for you, Rob, if you had 6 pages, the first 6 pages, what do you think about that?
It's really tough because, like George says, I've thought about this so many times. But like, if I want to release something of Replicator, how do I release it knowing that the second book is a lot better art-wise? It throws my head through a loop. Clayton goes on about, he says you could do an entirely free book for everyone, like a prelude. But he also said up above, a booking costs up to $10,000 to make. So
no, I think what he's saying is you're going to make this book. I'm manufacturing this book, call it Replicator. It's a brand new book. I'm going to release it to everyone for free at first, digital-wise, maybe even the first 12 pages. So no one feels left out when it's time to back it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think George talked about this earlier. Maybe you get your first campaign out, and then you could start really, like Rob has an idea for a second IP. Print out that ash can, send it out with the your next Replicator comic. I mean, give it to everybody who backed or whatever. Then you can make, since you gave that away for free, you can give a digital away for free too, because you gave it to the backers for free anyways.
Bingo.
Maybe I think you're hitting it right on the head, Leroy. You're saying it right. That if what you're giving away, everyone got for free, then no one's offended. Then if you charge somebody for it at one point and then gave it to someone else for free, especially people who took the risk on you. I think you're right, Leroy.
You've announced the title publicly, right, Rob? We can say it?
Yeah.
So we're talking about Star X here.
Yeah.
So when the time comes for Star X, if he has an ash can in there when you back Replicator 4, and then he releases that ash can for free digitally, no one's paid for it. We got it for free. You can tease the pages out to everyone. That would work.
Rob, we hope you do that, because I want to read Star X.
And I like ash cans.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this topic? Like how we should be, what other avenues that we can use to expand?
I thought the topic was, do we want to be like the mainstream?
Well, the answer is no. We
went past that quickly, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
My recommendations is try to as best you can to stick to deadlines and get things out as quickly as you can so you can get to your next book. We backed you because we want to see it and we want to see what's next.
Honestly, there's a couple creators I'm keeping an eye on this year, like one you Rob, and Malin being another, where you guys are like, hey, we're doing this model. It's going to be 2 year. This is how it's going to be. I want to see if it works because right now, I mean, honestly, just getting one book out a year for you guys seems to be like it's just good. Like, so doing 2 a year, you and Malin would be like the standard, the gold bears.
And you're in the position to do it because you're already funded 3 and you're already funded enough to be working on 4.
Yeah.
So you could get 3 fulfilled mid-year and have the 4th one out the door before the end of the year. And we're talking about issue 4 of a crowdfund. How often do you see that?
Drew's bouncing out. He's been really good in the chat, I want to say. Thanks Drew.
Later, man.
Yeah. No, Drew is rad. Thank you, Drew.
But yeah, think about that. How many issue 4 crowdfunds do you see?
I mean, I can't think of any in CG.
You know, I backed this one called Starside, which was pretty cool, and they've done their issue 3, going on to issue 4. That was a cool one.
Yeah, it's really cool, but I think the major problem with getting out 2+ books a year is the shipping and fulfillment side of things. Like it takes so much time, and there's so much time in transit. Like, especially because of the thing that's happening everywhere. It takes forever. You're aware, aren't you, George, of how long it takes to ship stuff?
Yes.
Like it's crazy.
Do you buy the excuse of the thing that's going on right now, George, is why we can't get things shipped out though?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Because you were doing a thing. I was like curious of what you thought about that.
Oh no. I'm not saying it's an excuse, but no.
Yeah. Whoa. I mean, things are just slower. I mean, they're just slower. They're not impossible. It's just unfortunate, like you're saying, Rob. It just takes more time than it did in 2019. It just takes a little more time. It sucks. Yeah.
I just don't like. I understand, like we're just brainstorming, but I just don't think it's broke. I think Zach has like said something in a video, and now we're all like, everything's broken. I don't think anything's broken. I think it's pretty good. But as far as expanding our audience, your audience, not mine, like that's interesting. I don't know how to go about it, but there's like different you guys can go to, like Ethan goes to Fandom Menace. He seems to be reaching out there. There's different clicks in the internet, like the board gaming community for Adam. Like, there's the manga online community. If I was a Black Rose, I'd be over there all the time trying to pull them in. But that's how you have to look at it. I think you have to go on the internet and find these different subcultures in the internet and try to appeal to those guys and pull them in.
Rob, I remember you 2 or 3 months ago saying this is the most backers and most money I've ever generated in one campaign. That was just during your initial 60. I can't imagine you feel as though there's a dip somewhere.
Not at all. And like, the video that has gone around, like, I think you do the right thing. You treat your backers with respect. You ship out a quality product. You make sure it gets to them in hand. You keep your communication as open and honest as possible, and people come back. It's not rocket science, really.
No, you're one of the better guys that, like, and we talk about this on Saturdays, like interacting with the chat, not being on panels, but just being in the chat, interacting it gives you a huge step up on anybody else if you just do it. Eddie is a perfect example, Eddie Winkler, right? So we rarely see him on panels, rarely, but he is always in the chat talking, hailing people, talking to people. $20,000, 400 backers on this campaign, probably based on that.
Incredible that he's done that on a first campaign. I forgot what I was going to say, but I agree.
No, that's. I think that there's a lot to be said for that. You're about connecting with the community, and also sometimes it kind of bums me out as somebody I'll be following and is really active on Twitter or around, and then their book gets done, and then they disappear completely, and you're always like, hey, I like that. Granted, when you're in the middle of the campaign, you're going to be pushing harder. That's fair. But that you then just disappear for 3 months afterwards is kind of a bummer.
I think I was kind of lucky that, I did start on Kickstarter. Like, I had to scrape and fight to get funded every time, and I didn't make money. So that when it comes around that I'm making money and I can start books ahead of schedule, man, I appreciate the shit out of that. You don't understand. Like, it was not easy, and now it's a little bit easier. So I appreciate every back that I get.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But
George, go, Leroy.
I don't think anything's broken. Like I said, that's kind of like where I'm at. Like, nothing's broken. Everybody remain calm.
Yeah. Don't chase those mainstream ideals because they haven't worked out. The model hasn't worked out. I think what we're doing now with the premium, the way that, as creators and fans, you can interact together, you can go on streams and get entertainment. I think that is the way to go.
I think value is underrated too. There's a book that George and I have not backed that we are going to back, both of us, based on the people in the chat always telling us what incredible value this book is, and the word of mouth just from the chat saying how great it is. Like, so giving value is sometimes, because let's look at Zach again. He doesn't give great value with his campaigns, but based on everybody in the chat, they're just excited they get all this stuff with this one book. And George and I are like, all right, we got to back this now. Like, we have to see what this is all about.
Now, I know we already talked about this topic, but Rick Taylor says one idea is to get these books to as many shops that are still alive, give them discounts on the books, and send them free posters to hang in the shop. What's that called when you sell something at a store, but you don't make consignment? So you tell them it's a consignment book. You want it charged for $15, which is what we paid for it, and then you'll give the store a cut once it sells, and let them hang the poster. Maybe you won't sell any, but maybe you'll get some eyes on it. You know what I mean? Like, start with just 2 or do you have local stores that you could drive to and stuff?
Me?
Yeah.
No. I mean, they're like an hour away. I could drive there technically, yeah. But they're not
I think to George, this event, like in the board game world, have this thing called Gamma, which is where retailers all come together, and I'll be at it on the board game front. But in the comic book space, there are lots of Facebook groups and other people. And Rob, you and I should probably chat offline. I have a sales rep that helps me to get into some of these retailer Facebook groups and other things that you can connect directly with retailers that I think are meaningful. Because I agree. I think you want to get your stuff out there.
I borrow ideas makes a good point, which Leroy talks about often. I see creators show up only to promote their books in the chat and then leave. Leroy always says, you've got to be part of the chat. You've got to interact with the chat before you have a book to sell. Actually go there, hang out with people, give people shit, ask questions, say hello to people. And then when it comes time, that's when you can sell your book. And I see it too. I've seen someone in the last 2 weeks come up to a stream who's a mod, drop a link, and then never see them for the rest of the chat. I'm just it's not the way to do it. No. Well, it's just inauthentic. I was talking to Luke, Death Metal Hero, about this. It's I like hanging out on these streams more than hanging out in Hollywood. And he's like, well, is it because we're more authentic? And I was like, yeah, because there's some legitimacy here that's there's passion and love here that's really special. And that authentic interaction, at least.
Yeah, I really hate Rob with a passion.
Yeah, he's a total jerk. I know.
Yeah.
Corey says, I think another problem is people comparing to Zach or Warren about what Zach said. He's his own person with his own plans, whether they're good or bad. Yeah. And that's the thing. I wouldn't follow what Zach does because Zach is his own person. I just think that, we should be following the premium model because I think it's the way to go for us. I don't think trying to do monthly books or 8 books a year is a good choice. That's what I'd say. I think that we've hit an hour, guys. Great chat. Chat was going bananas. Any final thoughts from anyone on the whole shebang?
Just to remind the chat, Rob's trying to grow his channel. Please hit like; it really helps him out.
And subscribe if you haven't.
Yeah, I'm subscribed. Boom.
and ring the bell for notifications.
I wouldn't go that. I wouldn't go that far.
Now you're pushing it. You ruined the whole thing, Rob.
I always do. I always
too
do.
far. I'm not doing that.
I have links for Leroy's chat
Oh,
or
thanks.
Leroy's show in the description below. I have links for the splintering
Oh, cool.
below as well. I will put a link for Kill Journal. I didn't have it in because Adam popped in last minute. So we will chuck that in. Thank you, everyone in chat. You guys absolutely killed it today.
Yeah,
we
the
had like
chat was
35 people
Yeah.
watching. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because it feels like this is a topic that people are really like have an opinion on. So, I'd really want to see more on this topic. Rick says, I've backed Rob 3 times because he has passion for Replicators, always promoting himself and his book. Oh, wow. Thanks, Rick.
I've
Rick's
yet to
great.
back a campaign more times than Rick. Even when I back one twice, he always seems to beat me.
Yeah. And what's this project that you both are going to back? Can you say or not?
Do you want to say?
No, let's wait. Let's
Okay.
wait.
Oh, this is. I like
Yeah.
this. There's a mystery tease here, George.
Yeah,
I like
wait.
this.
Terrible way to end the show. Thanks,
It's not
George.
war. It's not War Party though, because they were guessing in the chat. It's not what's in the. It's not War Party. It's something that's coming out here in a little bit.
Got it.
Beautiful.
Well, George and
Right.
Leroy, it's good to be on with you guys again.
Yeah, man.
And Rob, thank you for having me on. I love hearing your insights because we're different people, and it's cool to hear your thoughts.
Yep. All right. Catch you later, guys. Have a good one. Check out
Right.
Bancroft stream later today as well. See you later. Bye.
Later.